Fuck. The number one question in Philadelphia, can they shake the supernatural funk that saw them lose 5 of their last 6? In a new article by Diana Rossini in The Athletic, well, it's tenuous. Foremost issue, the Sirianni-Hurts relationship. She calls it a work in progress. Coach Mangini joins us to discuss. He's not here. He's actually in Cleveland. Coach, it's a pleasure to see you. Thank you for joining us on our first 2-hour show. We hope to have you in studio soon. How concerning was everything you read in this article?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for welcoming me back with a topic you know is near and dear to my heart.
Hot seat.
Firing people in July. So let's get to mid-July and see who we can possibly fire.
Listen, we just react to the news,
big
Coach.
losing streak,
Blame Diana Rossini for getting to the facts. It took till July to get the real story, but go ahead.
Coach,
sorry.
A-Block, I was talking about John Harbaugh going.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're coming out hot.
Yeah. Here we go.
Look, the article's, he's in a concerning position regardless of this article. Whenever you fire both coordinators, you're in a spot where there's nobody left to blame. It's on you. You've got a quarterback that you just signed to a long-term big deal, which you were a intricate part of. So you've signed off on his ability and what you think he can do. And so he's not going anywhere. So now it just comes down to you. The special teams coach isn't going to satisfy anybody, and that's the only guy who's got left to get rid of. So that's where he's at. But when you look at the idea that he was too conservative with his play calling, I don't think that's a fair narrative. I don't think that the decisions he was making were necessarily the wrong decisions from this perspective. Hurts had 15 picks last year, which was equal to the amount he had the previous two seasons. The defense was challenging at best. Okay, significant amount of problems. So if you don't commit to running the ball, then you're just putting that defense back out in the field, which is going to obviously lead to more points, which is going to put you in a position that's more and more difficult. So trying to control the clock and take some pressure off an area of extreme weakness, that's not a bad idea either.
So before, I want to get to Jalen Hurts in a second, but before I give my take on that, there was something else in this article that struck me as outright bizarre, and I just want your perspective or history on it. Diana wrote, she said, Howie Roseman clearly has all the power. That's not unprecedented. There are certain places where the coach has more power, certain places where the GM has more power. What I couldn't believe was she explained how he picked the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, he being Howie Roseman, the GM. Coach, in your experience, how rare is it for a head coach to not have control of his own staff? And does that have any chance of being a successful kind of power dynamic?
It's pretty rare. It's not unprecedented, but it's rare. And here's another thing that I thought in reading this is, you're mad at the head coach for potentially micromanaging the quarterback, for not allowing them to make the decisions that he thinks is best, and he's trying to control his team, and he has every right to. And in being mad at him, you're micromanaging him. You're deciding who he's going to have to work with, and you continually cut his legs out. I think that the fair thing to do in this situation, if you really want to give Nick Sirianni a chance to prove that he's the guy, is let him go get his own guys. Let him fail with the way that he wants to do things, as opposed to be in this situation where, he can easily take a step back and say, they weren't my guys. And look, I know it wasn't what anybody wanted in the finish of the season last year, but you got to give him credit for going 10-1. It's hard after a Super Bowl, and we see it year in and year out that the Super Bowl loser has a huge hangover. They defied all expectations to get to where they were, and it kind of caught up with them later, which makes it all look terrible.
The other piece of this that was to me a flashing red alert of concern is calling the relationship with Jalen Hurts a, quote, work in progress. They've been together for essentially Jalen's whole career.
Yeah.
Since Jalen's been the starter, he's the only coach he's had. There is not a relationship in my life that 3 years in I was like, you know what? It's not working. And then it ended up working.
Well, Josh.
No, I've always liked Josh. The closest thing's probably you and me, but we had it figured out by 18 months, buddy. So, like, there isn't, like, that to me, Coach, is really concerning. And I understand why they don't get along, or get along is probably too strong, why they have personality conflicts. They're very different people.
Yeah.
And so Jalen Hurts, people can say he's a little too cool, but I think he's just, that's the way he is. He's composed, he's thoughtful. And Sirianni's not. And you guys, everybody made fun of me for this moment in the Super Bowl.
I hope you, I love this.
This moment in the Super Bowl, not him yelling at Chiefs fans, not him doing any of this other stuff. This is in the Super Bowl. The coach is preening and the quarterback's like, calm down.
That is weird, Coach.
And so those two people are not naturally going to be copacetic typically.
You know who he reminds me?
Especially in the midst of struggles.
Okay.
What? Go ahead.
Well, this sets me up perfectly. Stoic guy who's all about football and doesn't want any of your hijinks or nonsense or preening to the crowd or doing too much.
You want Coach Mangini to leave us?
Well,
and go
Coach Mangini is also cut from the same cloth. But, Coach, do you think they had the meetings with Belichick or calls or just, let's call it a flirtation with Belichick? Do you think that ever comes to fruition, and does it weigh on Sirianni's mind? He claims it didn't.
He's got to understand the dynamics in Philly, where he wouldn't be the first head coach that had success and then was let go in that organization. So he knows what that is. And in terms of the relationship, though, Nick, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have some balance where one guy's fiery and the other guy is more calm and reserved. Usually it ends up being the other way, where the player is more fiery and the coach has to be brought down. But that can balance. You can get some good things out of that because you play off of each other's strengths. And in terms of what's changed in this relationship, they have been together, and there is the Sirianni does have to continue to allow him to grow in the system. But Jalen also signed a gigantic deal. And with signing a gigantic deal comes a lot of pressure. Pressure to justify the numbers. Pressure to be something that the money dictates that you are. And with that, guys often try to do too much.
Well, on that note,
players,
hold on, let me ask you a question on that, Coach. Because this is another thing that I believed that everyone made fun of me for, but now we just call the end of their season a supernatural funk and we throw it away as if there wasn't something to it. So tell me if you think this is insane, because I know I'm right. I think Jalen Hurts had more of a problem with the tush push after he got paid. I think that's a type, like, is that unreasonable for me to think that what a guy who was a second-round pick, proving himself in the league is okay doing, didn't think it was going to all of a sudden be a bigger part of the offense post him becoming a $50 million a year quarterback? If I'm wrong, then
you're not wrong. Brett Favre would not quarterback sneak. Brett Favre would not he was not going to put himself at risk, and that was not. So we'd get in those situations where it was 4th and inches, and you could walk it in with a quarterback sneak, but he wasn't going to do that. And there's a lot of guys who are like that, and it makes sense when you're making that kind of money to now put yourself, at risk over and over again in a giant pile of who knows how many pounds that is. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and it was a very effective play, and I get it. But when you start paying someone that kind of money, it's the same thing with quarterback-driven runs. You can do a bunch of them, it's fine. But every time you expose your franchise quarterback that you're paying a lot of money to getting hit an extra time, it's going to come back and catch you.
All right, let's look forward to next year, Coach. They obviously started off hot last year, then got into the supernatural funk. So either there's two ways to look at the beginning of this year. Either it's, hey, fresh start. If we start 0-3, we're just 0-3, we can turn around. Or you can start adding those losses onto last year's losses. At what point, if this season starts slow, do you start to get worried about Sirianni?
Well, based off of what happened last year, everybody's going to expect to see some kind of change and some kind of change early. So it's not just starting slow, it would be how they start slow. If they're losing tight games that are highly contested, emotional, the players look like they're vested and everybody's buying into the program.